All right, so welcome everybody. After look, it's a stressed out market, and we're all stressed out because of the technology here. But we got things going. We're at the house in order. We are ready to go. Welcome to another edition of Think with a Drink. That's the weekly webinar series brought to you by the Aries Foundation for Financial Education. This week's topic is buying a home in a stressed out market. And before we start that up, we do have some. Just a little housekeeping, a pre-flight checklist. We let everybody know the event's being recorded. Just keep your microphones muted. You don't have to worry about the cameras because the only thing that is being recorded is what's being shown on the screen. There is a chat box, however. If you do have questions, feel free to dump them into the chat box. We will try to get to them as we go along. My co-pilot, who I'll introduce in a second, will help me with that. And also, he'll keep us on pace here so we get this flight in. Celtics don't play till 8:30, so we got a little leeway there in terms of timing for that.
I forgot my jersey.
Yeah, a little bit about your pilots for tonight's journey. My name is Tom Alessi. I'm the president of the Aries Foundation. I've been in financial services for over 23 years now. I'm an investment advisor. That means I act as a fiduciary whenever giving guidance or advice to any of my clients. I want to bring my vice president, Craig. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Craig Richardson. I'm the vice president of the Aries Foundation. I've been doing financial services for a little over 18 years now, and I specialize in working with families to help them define their goals and have a better relationship with their money.
See, I got that one right on there. See, so that's a good thing.
Finally, yes.
It only took a couple of weeks, but that's okay.
It'll be 19 years. I'll be going 18 for a while, right?
So we told you Think with a Drink is brought to you by the Aries Foundation for Financial Education. You can visit us at ariesfoundation.org. We are a nonprofit. The mission behind Aries is trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money, because whether you realize it or not, you are in a relationship with your money. And just like every other personal relationship that you might have, there are behaviors and emotional triggers that cause us to act irrationally sometimes when dealing with our finances. All Craig, myself, the rest of the Aries team, we try to do is help everybody be a little bit better in terms of keeping those emotions in check when dealing with your money. These are our disclosures. We're not going to read them to you. Just know we're a nonprofit. This is all meant to be educational. We're trying to give the information as we understand it, know it in today's world. One of the things that we will bring up as to one of the points we're going to talk to later, though, is that for any time you have any questions, whether they be legal, tax, or financial, that you seek out the help of a professional in trying to get those questions answered. That was a lot for me. So now it brings us to the fun part of this evening. We call this Think with a Drink because we want it to be a little bit more casual, a little bit more relaxed. And we can't think of a better way to do that than if we have something cold to sip on and the rest of our audience can imbibe along with us. Doesn't have to be alcoholic. That's up to you. It's just we find that helps us to relax a little bit in terms of going through that. This week we are drinking, this is Sunny Ridge, described as an aromatic lager with a sunshine hue. It's got herbal noble hops and an extended dry and a very dry finish, right? It's described as a balanced lager, a blend of European hops and polished off with extended periods of cold conditioning. So Jack's Abbey describes it as being fit for royalty, Craig. And so I figured since, a home is called a castle and, this would be something that would be fit for, that a king might be drinking, that we might as well drink it as well. So we are going to pour it. Or Kennedy, yes. I'd say, they were kings of Massachusetts. They were certainly the kings of Cape Cod, that's for sure.
Yeah, mine in a nice old mug.
So the one time you don't have the glass, because if you looked on the can, it says drink like royalty. Skull.
Not out of the can? Oh, you do have a glass. Oh, and you have Celtics. Look at you.
No, that's Buzzard's Bay.
Oh, it's Buzzard. It looked like Celtic, looked like round and green. I thought it was a Celtic glass. Could have went with it.
Yeah. I could have said yes. But see, now here's the thing, right? So Jack's Abbey, they are the official beer of the Boston Celtics. See, ties right in there with that. Game 2 tonight in the Eastern Conference Finals. You can visit the brewery at 100 Clinton Street in Framingham. A credible selection of beers, great food. One last shout out to Mayfest. That's this coming weekend, Friday through Sunday. Going to be 90 degrees on Saturday. Can't think of a better place to be Saturday night than hanging in the beer garden out on the patio and having some nice cold lagers. So if you get a chance, go by. Make sure you wear your lederhosen.
Do they have seats reserved for us?
No, I don't have seats reserved for us. I'm headed down to the Cape because it is going to be way too hot here. Yeah. Cape. All right. So the agenda for tonight, let's get into this presentation.
Okay.
Why is it so crazy right now? Be prepared. Get creative. This is, keep trying basically in terms of going through it. Understand your limits. Have a clear vision of what you're trying to do. And again, we open this for Q&A. So, one of the things, and we're not talking about, we've done stuff in the past, Craig, with like first-time home buyers and, somebody just trying to acquire a property. That's not what we're talking about tonight. What we're talking about tonight is trying to buy a home. This is 2022 in 2022's market, right? And understand that the way home prices have gone, the way the competition is right now, buyers have to be smarter about what, where, and when they are buying. That is absolutely key, number one to everything. And you and I, Craig, we run into it all the time, right? With people who are trying to buy right now and struggling in terms of trying to find that house.
Well, I mean, this happened a little bit in 2006, 2007, right before the 2008 crash with the housing market, where you saw this giant run up on home prices and everybody was scurrying and they were, bidding unseen and, just crazy bidding wars on houses, going above and beyond the asking prices just because inventory was low. And it seems again like inventory is low for those, those houses that people are looking for. And that makes you like,
you would think he was already privy to this slide, which he's not, right? So 22 isn't going to be like 21 because of the mortgage rates. The inventory, which was, already tight, is getting even tighter. And what you're talking about there with that run up happening, right? So that's a very real trend that is possibly going to occur as we head here to the end of this year, maybe into the beginning of next year with home prices.
Yes. Yeah. The big difference, and I haven't seen the slides going forward, but I don't want to give it away. But the big difference in this market is you don't have these crazy mortgage.
Correct. The mortgage-backed securities, that whole thing, that's not part of this. No, that's not in the slide. So you can feel free to, in terms of going through that. But here's one of the things with it, where that let's call it a recession to the home prices, right? One of the things with that is if home prices do come down, which is an expectation, right? One of the things that's going to do is that's going to lower inflation. So this whole thing with the Fed raising interest rates, because of inflation and where things are going, should home prices drop and drop dramatically, which is a possibility, inflation is going to be hedged. It's going to come down, which the Fed will then, possibly abort or reverse course on raising rates any further from here. So something to watch as this all comes together over the next 6 to 8 months.
The only concern with that is if you're buying right now, be buying for the long term because you don't want to be underwater when those home rate prices come back down again.
Right. But we're talking about getting into the home that you want to get into. Right. So it's buying that dream home.
That was, again, one of the issues. People bought on a 5-year arm saying, I'll buy and sell. And you may be hit by that one if you're trying to do it.
Right. Yeah. The whole crisis in terms of what occurred at that point. Yeah, you're correct on that. What we're talking about is you're trying to get into your home, the one that you want to buy. This isn't I'm trying to flip something for a profit.
Dream home situation.
Yeah, this is the trying to get into that property. So, besides all the other stuff, normal stuff that you need to have, right? Having a larger down payment or a bigger down payment goes a long way. Now, you don't have to have a huge down payment. A down payment in today's world can be as low as 3%. It's not going to look as lucrative and as good to somebody who's selling as a larger down payment. right? The more you have, the better your offer looks, obviously. The more that you're willing to put up to purchase that home, it makes it that much more of an attractive offer. But one of the things you need to do with that, right, is, you got to rein in your spending, right? How often do we talk about that, correct, right?
Well, I think it's understanding your spending. And one good thing to know is, what are you currently spending now on rent if you don't own a home? Or if you do own a home and you're going to another home, what is your current mortgage? And do you have flexibility in your budget if you should upgrade and want to go to a larger home?
Right.
So getting comfortable with what that new payment is going to be is pretty crucial, not just to obtaining the house, but also making sure you can keep the house.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The DPA, that's down payment assistance programs. They do, each state has them, so you can look there. Again, you're trying to make this, and we're going to talk as we go along, creative ways to make you look better than everybody else. But this is just trying to get that down payment. It says borrow from family. We're not talking about borrowing, like how to do this without getting in trouble with anything, right? So it's really about getting gifted. It's not a loan, right? So it's about borrowing money, but in a way that you can show or say to a seller or a lender, right, this was a gift from a family member. I don't have to repay this type of thing, because that makes it more lucrative. Again, it's more cash that's available. And then there are low or no money down loans, but that's what Craig was talking about, which is where all that trouble came in, and all the problems that happened back in 08 and 09 was a lot of those programs getting wrapped up in that stuff.
So we have a quick question from the audience, Tom.
Sure.
Is there a formula for determining whether it is advantageous to put down 3% versus 10 or 20%, aside from lowering the amount borrowed or not paying PMI? How do we determine the opportunity costs?
Right. And so it's looking at, really, as Craig said, sort of getting a handle on your spending and where you're, how much you have and how much is available, but also the competition. And we're going to talk about that in terms of what looks best to a seller. And so if you've only put 3% down and 97% of this is through a lender, but somebody else is coming in at 20% down, they're going to look like a better offer. So some of that gets tied into, wait, how much is this person really serious about this? They're not putting up a lot of money. You're trying to get this home. And in today's world, it's a very, very competitive, we're going to talk about that, a very competitive marketplace. So it's hard to do that, say right off the top. You can say the opportunity cost for it, but it's more of the lost opportunity. You may not even get a chance.
Well, I think the biggest thing too, Tom, is making sure you go in pre-approved.
Oh, wait, yeah.
Got that letter in your hand, you're approved to a certain amount. Because I think what really is going on, the reason cash is king when it comes to the real estate world, is because buyers or sellers are looking for quick closings. Right. They want to see it happen as fast as they're trying to get rid of this house and yesterday. So, but at the same time, like you said, it's a competitive market. So if you come in with a letter, they know what your max is. It's hard to go over that.
Right. Well, we'll talk about that. There are ways to go over that, and we'll go through that in terms of some of that stuff. But one of those things, and that's part of it, as we talked about, and as Craig had just sort of gone through before, which is getting your financial house in order, right? So trying to save as much as you can for that down payment. We'll talk about saving strategies in a second, right? Lower your debt to income ratio. Again, that's everything looks better that way. It helps improve your credit score. That's going to look better, right? Go back and check your credit reports. Do the free credit report thing. See if there's anything on there that might be an error or might cause a problem. Pay off or pay down debts as you're getting ready to put your offer in, or getting ready to, I'm going out to buy, find my dream home. Oh, and whatever you do, make sure that those debts are getting paid on time, right? That you don't have any problems that's going to mess up your credit report. And for the time being, try to avoid opening new accounts as you're going into this process. Now, if you're already somebody who's been in the mill and trying to get this, and I've been looking at places and getting bounced and go through, we've got some creative ideas for you to go with that. But this is making sure that you've got the financial pieces that set up in place so that you can make that purchase. we talk about the saving strategies, and we'll just go through it real quick because it's, this is for us, the in and out of everything that we do. But it's 3 different buckets. That first bucket is emergency reserves. The second bucket, which is midterm, that would be your saving for the down payment. And then long-term bucket number 3, that's, down the road, retirement, education for a young kid, that type of thing. Your emergency reserve bucket number 1 has to be filled, Craig, we're saying today, at least 2 months, right? Basically
Yeah, I mean, the basic rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months of fixed expenses. But because we know a lot of people are recovering their savings from the whole 2 year of COVID, that, if you can have 6 to 8 weeks, that's
Right.
a real great start.
Yeah, and that's the idea, but that bucket's got to be filled. You can't be focusing everything on that down payment, not have bucket number 1 get filled, because if that emergency happens, where are you going to tap from? You're going to tap from bucket number 2, which is going to lower that down payment bucket that you now suddenly, walked into your dream home and you want to purchase it, but the emergency just happened and you didn't have the funding to take care of that. So just realize bucket number 1's got to get filled and has to stay filled unless the emergency happens. Then focus everything onto that down payment. And then, as Craig said, you got to have all of the pieces in place, right? You got to have that budget together, and it's not just a budget, right? For hey, Craig said, can I stay in the home, right? Can I keep that going? But it's also some of the other stuff that goes along with just making the purchase, right? You got closing costs, you got points or lenders fees. The home might need some immediate repair or maintenance done to it. You got real estate taxes, I got insurance, right? You got all these things that need to be accounted for. That's got to come from someplace.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and you want to be smart about these things. If you're going to buy a home, get a home inspection. It can save you tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in the long run, right? So you don't have to get into the repairs and maintenance. If the repairs and maintenance are needed, you can negotiate that up front, when you're buying a home. And closing costs and real estate tax, those are a lot of things that can be bargained with when you're dealing with real estate brokers as well, mortgage brokers. So there's some things to think about. Go in educated, go in knowing what those costs are going to be. Don't just think they're all boilerplate and get stuck.
Right. But some of that stuff, as we're going to go through here, is going to be stuff that might have to fall to the wayside in a competitive
market. Yes. Yeah.
Right. So again, remember, we're in a competitive market. We're trying to find this, and that's the whole thing. So what we're going to talk about now, the next, part of this, and really the sort of bulk of what we're doing here, is about how to get your offer accepted. Right. And, really, because of what's going on, today's home buyers should expect competition, and that competition, it's fierce. I mean, you're talking Craig and I deal with clients all the time who are going through this and buying homes, but we also happen to we're one of the advisors who work with Coldwell Banker. So we sort of have an idea and a pulse on what's happening with the industry. And you're talking anywhere from, I think on average, it's like 10 or 12 at least bids that are coming in on every single property that's hitting the market in today's world.
Right. And then some of them are hitting 10, 20, 30% above the asking price on the offers.
Well, we're going to talk about that. That comes into getting your offer. But right now, it's just understand you're going to have competition. You should go in with the mindset, I'm going to have competition. So how can I be different from every other bid that's going on? So the first thing is you want that offer to be as clean as possible, right? There shouldn't be any concessions. There shouldn't be anything like, oh, well, I got to sell my house, or I got to make sure that this goes through. Like Craig said, you've got that pre-approval, that's got to be in hand, ready to go. You're all set up with that. Should be all set. There shouldn't be any, well, we've got to make sure that this goes through or that goes through. Anything like that is going to push you off the pile.
Or I can't close for 60 days because I have to move. Right. Mhm.
It's, anything like that, forget it. You're going to be off the table. You're not going to get the, you got to be like you want to sell tomorrow, fine. We're good. We're going, here we go. We're in, that's where we want to go. Got to be as clean as possible, because that will keep you, you're not really going to get through the whole wall, but you'll get at least stay on the top of the offers that are there.
Right. When the gates open, be ready to run.
Yeah. That's Disney, right? Try to get the first ride in Disney. Right. So just understand the appeal and the risks of making an offer without concessions, basically. Right. So that I'm not sure what happened there. There we go. This is what Craig talked about, and some of it that you can do it. There have been situations now, Craig, I've heard of these, I've seen them, where they're literally waiving the home inspection.
Oh, a sight unseen offers, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, no, they're still walking through the place, but they're not doing a home inspection. They're having a home inspector come in and doing a whole walkthrough on the property and do that piece of it.
Right, but I've heard of actually no site offers. The houses, maybe you see a picture online and just put the offer down. Right.
Yeah, that's when we get a little crazy, but so
that's what's going on. So
yeah, no, and you're right in terms of dealing with that. But so I mean, there are situations where you can say, yes, we're just going to waive, but that's getting really taking on the risk, or unless when you do your walkthrough, you've got an eye and can figure that out. Not something we recommend. I don't care how squeaky clean or how competitive it is, because like Craig said, you could wind up with tens of thousands of dollars of costs that you are not prepared for in that situation.
right, they don't show mold in the pictures. Right.
Yeah. It's always bright and sunny and nice, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Whatever you do, and I don't care how wonderful it looks in the house or how great it matches with everything, don't ask for any of the stuff that's in the house when you're making your bid. You may think that's a great thing, and I love the way it goes. Hey, what can we do about keeping that piece or that thing in the house? Don't, right? You like the patio furniture, go to Home Depot or Lowe's or someplace afterwards, and you replace it yourself. Don't do that, because that's another thing that's just you're gonna get pushed off. Like, why are they asking for that? You're just gonna get yourself in trouble with it. So don't do that.
If they're leaving the house furnished, they'll tell you that in the description of the property.
Yes, or tell you what might be left or could be worked out in terms of it, but you leave that on the seller's side of the table, Craig, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In this market. Yep. Yeah, and that's the whole key, right? We're talking about this particular market, not
Right
buying
now.
a house in general. Right?
Yeah, correct. No, this isn't the buying the home in general and all that preparation. This is trying to wade through, right now in 2022.
If you have to have it now, right?
Yeah, well, so as Craig mentioned, these offers going way and well above asking price, and we'll talk about a way to deal with that in a second, with another strategy for that. But it doesn't have to be this overwhelming above asking. Even though I know, like Craig said, sometimes that these numbers, their final numbers are coming in at 10, 20, 30% above. But you could just go, if the asking price is 675, maybe you're coming in at 678 or 680 type of thing, right? Where Craig, you're just getting yourself into the conversation. You're not coming in at or under, right? So you're a little bit more serious than somebody else who bid under, so they're not even going to get asked back on a second bid.
Well, we recently had a client who offered, 20% over the asking price as the initial bid. So, if you're offering, 1% more, I guess in normal situations, I'd say that's fine. If you have to have it now and you're 2,000 to 3,000 over the asking price, you're probably not even going to consider, because there's 10 more people walking in behind you. So,
right. Well, again, you're trying to get into the process of it. And you're right. But if you're doing the correct thing, you're working with somebody, a professional, you have all the pieces in place, you know what's there, right? Then you knew to come in probably 10,000 more than what the asking price was.
well, I mean, I think the issue is, I wouldn't recommend buying in an emotional environment like we have right now, because that's what's going on. It's emotion. I'm throwing all this money at it because I want it, and the market's going to be gone, and that. What we're talking about is if you have to do that right now, you got to find a house for whatever reason. You want it, you love it, or you're moving and you have no choice. This is the market we're dealing with, right? And in that, you're going to get one shot. You're not going to they're not going to negotiate with you 4 or 5 times on different bids if they got 10 more bids right behind you. So you got to make sure your first bid is the bid you are comfortable with. This is how much I can afford. This is where I'm willing to go to, and then that's where you open.
Well, we will talk about a way that you can do that, and we'll talk about it, but it comes with a lot of risk, right? But hold on, we're getting there yet. Yeah, I know everything does, right? So the other thing, and this comes a lot, which is waiving the appraisal, right? So this is really knowing the market, knowing what's going on, working with a lender who understands the marketplace. As Craig said, you can work this out with a mortgage broker in terms of making sure that if they're okay, and if you have at least 20% down, you can waive the appraisal fee. You can waive that. You can waive the appraisal of the property for the lending. So it's something to consider, because again, that gives the buyer this sense of, okay, they don't have to go through this whole appraisal thing. They know what our home is worth. They know what it's a value at, and they're coming in to buy it. So that is something that is definitely recommended. Again, you got to have 20% down to do that. So that 3%, or as the audience asked, the difference between 3 or 10, well, you don't get to waive the appraisal in that situation.
Right.
So here's the other one, Craig. This is the I'm coming in with the bid, but I'm putting this what's called an escalation clause onto my bid.
Okay.
So it says, I'm willing to go X higher of whatever the next bid is, all the way up to Y, right? So if, let's say again, the 675 was the asking price, I'm coming in at 700, like you said, 25,000 over, but I will go all the way to 740 on this property.
So they sold the eBay formula. Throw in your max bid, right? And let it creep up to the max bid. And then it'll let you know, and then you decide, do you want to go higher? Right.
Well, no, you put a cap on it.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Right.
Right. So you put a cap and say it's 7, but here's the whole thing. See, because here's the whole idea is the seller can turn around and they can do what's known as a counter offer. And the seller can say to you, well, okay, that's great. We're going to pull this and we're going to put it for 740 now, since that was your max number. So now it's 740. So you've got this escalation bid in there. You can get caught with the whole, wait, the seller's looking at it going, I'm selling for 675, but he's willing to go to 740. Why don't I just say 740 right now and we'll sell this house to you?
Well, I think the other thing you have to do is you got to know what's going on with the seller. That's the other thing. Why are they selling the property, right? How motivated are they? Do they need to be out of there tomorrow? Or, is this something they just want to sell because the market's hot and they're looking to see what they can do? I think if you're going to offer a great bid, then you want to make them think too that they got to get back to you within a certain amount of time because you got another house you're bidding on. You've got to create some urgency on their side. Whether that's true or not is irrelevant. The issue is if there's no impetus, if you give them all the cards, then they're holding all the cards.
Yeah.
Right. You've got to have a retractable bid. So look, I'm willing to put this down. I give you 24 hours. If I don't hear, I'm pulling it and moving on to the next property. Now that may be tough because you're getting into emotional. I want it. But you're going to get swept up in that overpaying for a property if you're not careful with, getting that attachment.
Right. But like we talked about, this is that way of sort of countering or having that, okay, I came in 5 or 10,000 over, ultimately the property sold for 40 or 50 over, but I put myself in. So I was at least walking that line as it happened. It's a way to do it.
Right.
And then because we're drinking Sunny Ridge and it's fit for a king. So cash is always king, right? So if nothing else, having the ability to have cash tells the seller, you're in, there's no lender or third party or somebody else involved. This is a transaction between us, and we can get this. Like Craig said, a lot of times it's the close as quickly and as easy and simple as possible. Cash does that. That's why cash offers tend to win sometimes, even if they're right at about or near, similar, because it's an ease thing for sellers. They don't have to worry about the bank pulling the note or something else falls through or some other contingency thing happening.
Well, I mean, the issue is even if you have a clean, offer in hand and you have a clean, a pre-approval, it's still going to take, because you're dealing with a bank, 30 days before it's done. Cash is king. And I've heard of people losing bids to someone even lower with cash because they could close in a week.
Right.
Done. Right. Here's the check. Get your attorney. We'll do the closing. We're done this week.
Yeah, I mean, that's why cash is king, but it's tough. Like we know, then not everybody has the cash. So you got to make your offer as clean as possible. And one of the other things you can do is add a little bit of a personal touch. This is a note to the seller along with the bid, like, how much you envision and love the home, and, how you could see your family spending time there and things to do with that. Because people get emotional. Like Craig said, a lot of times there's emotion involved with this. And people get emotional about their properties and the home and the memories that they have, and nothing more than having a family who's going to come in and cherish the property and do, and have the same sort of thing that they did. It's not going to swing, this is like baseball. It's not like, hey, we offered you $3 million less. Why aren't you playing for us? Right. But in a tight window, it can help sway it a little bit.
Yeah, I think you hit on a really good point. People are emotionally attached to their property. They like to feel like, oh, well, someone's buying it. Who's going to take care of it? It's like, if they, they're going to leave it the same way it was, and not going to come back, and the whole thing's going to be bulldozed down. There's going to be another property there, right? Because they feel attached to that, like it's almost like a person.
There was that Beetlejuice, right, where they tore the house down and started doing all the crazy stuff to it with the house.
Right. And the additions and the decks with the walls and all that. Yeah. Absolutely. So I think you're right. I think the emotion plays both ways, and it can help you to get a closing if you can make a connection with the seller. The issue is a lot of times you don't even see the seller. That's the other problem.
Right. Well, that's what the note does. That's why you put the note in with the bid so that the seller would see that.
Right. And they have to give that to the seller.
Correct.
They're required to do that. Yep.
So the other is, as we're experiencing with our clients, like I said, we deal with a lot of realtors. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of missing out or not getting the bid, or gee, I really wanted that property. It's the same thing of keeping yourself focused, and like Craig said, not getting too caught up in that emotion. I think that's the lesson, really, Craig, right? Is not getting swept up in that. Well, that's the house I want. I'm going to pay, 50 to 100 grand more than the asking price because I want that house. Sometimes it's taking a reality check and stepping back and going, wait a minute, is this really any different than if I wait or find something else, maybe on a different street or, one zip code over type of thing? Can I really just keep myself going? Like Craig said, depending on your situation and what your need is, and how quickly you need to get into a property, that's part of it. But the other is trying to make sure that you're not, and I don't want to call it acting irrationally, but getting caught up or swept up. Like I think that was a good way to describe that. Getting swept up in that emotion of I'm in a bidding war. I've got to keep bidding. I've got to keep going. I need to get this property, right?
Well, I think like anything, even like we talked about sell in May and go away last week, right? It's about, when do you want to buy something? You want to buy it when it's on sale, or do you want to buy it when it's as hot as it could possibly be and the price is really high? Right now, everybody's buying on that emotion of, oh, look at the market's going on. I want to jump on board and get a new home as well. But you're buying at the top of the market. And like I said, sometimes that is driven by necessity. You don't have a choice, and then you're stuck, right? But if it isn't by necessity, then maybe you want to, play this one out a little bit, because mortgage rates will go up a little bit, prices will come down, and you don't want to be the one holding a note when you're underwater. So you
Right.
just want to be careful when you're doing this, that you consider everything as you're going forward and know what your limit is and know what your affordability is. I've seen people go house poor, right? Because they get a bigger approval on for their mortgage than they feel comfortable they could do on a monthly payment.
Right.
And the mortgage companies don't care that, now it's 35%, 40% of your income, where it was 15 or 20% before, as far as home housing goes. And then you're strapped with the one be trying to make those payments. So just be careful, consider everything, and try to pull some of the emotion out of this quick decision you're making.
Yeah, absolutely. And I echo that, because that's the idea here, is it's really trying to say, yes, it's great to do and thing, but I think for this market and trying to sort of steer yourself out of that emotional component is a big part of this. And I can't tell you, because I don't have the crystal ball, that it's going to be 6 months from now or 8 months from now, but everything sort of indicates that this isn't really, a bubble like 2008, 2009 was, but that it's got some price fluctuation to come down here in the housing market. And, the raising of the interest rates, the mortgage rates, is going to put a little pressure on that. The lack of inventory is going to put pressure on that. And what you're going to see is suddenly not as much of this happening. And, part of that run up from last year, really why it got a little crazy, was because of the supply chain issues. The new houses just weren't being built.
Right.
And so if some of that frees up, you start building new homes that picks back up, you're going to start seeing more inventory come onto the marketplace with that. And there should be some decline in the pricing. Don't know where it's going to go. Don't know how far it's going to go. This is sort of like the markets and where everything is at. Like Craig said, last week we did sell in May, and who knows where we're headed. That's more of a short-term thing. We see that in about a month and a half or so. We'll get a real clear indication of where that's going. Housing might be a little bit longer for that, maybe like till next spring, not to see where these come down.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to keep in mind too, Tom, is if you are in a situation where you've either already purchased in this high market or you have no choice but to purchase in this high market, if this is for a long term, like we talked about, 20, 30 years, it doesn't matter, right? $15,000, $20,000 more on an asking price isn't going to break the bank, and it's not going to make a difference over the long run. It's not going to put you underwater in the long run. It's only the short term that you have to be ready to face those ups and downs in the marketplace right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, for Craig and I, and what we try to do with all of our clients is try to help them have that clear vision. And in this case would be, specifically, what are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to get? What do you have for savings? What do you have for spending? And how much can you sort of figure out and work with and all of this? And I literally just did this with a client the other day, where we talked about, because she's caught up in that situation where they're talking about going, making a significant jump for her neighborhood and where she's trying to get to. But by doing it all out, we figured it out, and she's got a leeway to do that, but to a certain cap. And that's the point, to know where that cap is and what that limit is, where all those expenses are going to be when you start factoring in all of the expenses, the utilities and real estate and insurance and all of that stuff to go along with it, to make sure that you're going to continue to have the budget to live on as you go forward.
There's a lot of houses out there, and they're still making them. So don't get too caught up if something doesn't go the way you want it to.
Yes. Yeah, so one of the things that we offer to everybody is this opportunity to do this roadmap to financial awesomeness. It's complimentary, but it gives you a visual and shows you where you are, where you're trying to get to, what you have. You can type yes into the chat box. We're happy to reach out. But otherwise, Craig, if you got the scheduler, you can drop that into the chat box. You can schedule a time to meet with us. We're happy to do that. Appreciate it, Craig. He's right on top of everything. But this is really just, it's a visual overview, gives you like what you're trying to do, where you're at, and, sort of figure out with some of the ins and outs of what you're trying to achieve. What's coming up, we keep the think with the drink, that sort of whole thing, the vibe going, because we do what's on tap. And so next week we are going to do on 526, it's all about ABLE, the 529A. These are accounts for individuals who are differently abled or have a disability, to allow them to open accounts and put money away and have that money protected for the government benefits that they might be entitled to. For that, we're going to be drinking Pearly, which is from Springdale, the sister brewery of Jack's Abbey. On 6/3, it's all about crypto. Crypto. We're going to be, it's burning right now, but we'll talk about a little bit why it happened, what's going on with it, and really if there is a sustainable future for cryptocurrencies at this point, and where that's all headed. On 6/9, it's a fundamental look at everybody you listen to out there is either a bull or a bear. They're either growth or they're, sort of this conservative mindset. And you just got to understand, where that slant comes in for things and for yourself, and whether you're a bull or a bear, and how your outlook might need to either be altered or changed for what's ahead in the markets. And that's what we're going to be doing on 6/9. This is Craig and I in our more formal attire. I read it yesterday or the day before, something like that. The actual official retirement of Tom Brady was 40 days.
Was it that long?
It was 40 days. It was 40 days. That's what they said. It was exactly, it was 40 days.
So that, 4, I would have believed that.
It was 40 days. So 40 days, that's how long our jerseys were retired. We are bringing them back for one more season, just like TB12. I understand he's down in Tampa, but he's still the greatest of all time. So we will wear our jerseys for one more year. Any questions in the chat box, Greg?
I have no more questions in the chat box at this time.
Okay.
Everybody's out bidding on houses.
Yeah, scrambling around trying to make sure their offers are all set up and they've got all their pieces and parts in place and everything is all set. If you ever do have any questions, you can reach out to us. You can go to the website, www.aresfoundation.org, or you can shoot an email to us, info@aresfoundation.org. I want to wish everybody a wonderful evening. Go Celtics, game 2. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I hope.
Yeah, we do, Paul.